My name is Alyssa Carter, and I am 35 years old. I built my life from the ground up. While most people in my family believed success meant expensive degrees and fancy titles, I believed in long hours, real experience, and sacrifice. I started my investment consulting firm from nothing, working 60-hour weeks, skipping vacations, and pouring every ounce of energy into growing it. I never once asked my parents for financial help. I wanted to prove that I could stand on my own. 6 months ago, my parents called me in tears. Their beloved family vineyard, Redwood Hills Estate, was about to be foreclosed. 3 generations of hard work, memories, and tradition were on the verge of being wiped out by a single bank notice. They told me they had taken loans to fund my younger sister Lena's MBA and to build a new luxury tasting room, expecting future profits to cover everything. But the numbers didn't work. The bank was done waiting. "We are going to lose everything," my mother cried on the phone. "This is our legacy," my father said, his voice shaking. "We don't know who else to turn to." Without hesitation, I transferred $850,000, my entire life savings, into the Vineyard's account. Every dollar I had earned through years of exhausting work disappeared with one click. I did it because they were my family. Because I believed their promises. Because they told me this investment would secure my place in the business and protect what my grandfather had built with his own hands. I trusted them. Now, 6 months later, I was standing in the middle of our annual harvest celebration, inside the beautifully decorated barn at Redwood Hills. Golden lights hung from the beams, glasses clink, and guests laughed while soft music filled the air. I held a glass of wine in my hand, half raised to my lips, when my father tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone," he announced proudly. "Today marks a new chapter in our family's legacy. We are thrilled to announce that my daughter Lena, fresh from completing her MBA, will be taking over as the new CEO of Redwood Hills Estate." The room erupted in applause. I froze. My wine glass stopped inches from my mouth. My heart dropped into my stomach as I watched my younger sister step forward in a designer dress, smiling confidently, soaking in admiration. Lena had never worked a single day in the fields. She had never studied soil conditions, fermentation processes, or harvest cycles. She barely knew the difference between our Cabernet and Merlot in a blind tasting. And yet, she was being crowned CEO. My parents beamed with pride. Guests congratulated her. Cameras flashed. No one mentioned the sister who had saved the vineyard from foreclosure. No one mentioned the $850,000 that had kept these doors open. My mother leaned toward me and gently touched my arm. "Alyssa, honey, I hope you understand," she whispered. "Lena's degree makes her the natural choice to handle the business side." I smiled. A perfect, calm, practiced smile. "Of course," I said softly. "She'll do great." I raised my glass in a toast. To the new CEO of Redwood Hills. Everyone cheered. Inside, something cracked. The cold realization settled deep in my chest. The money I had given, the trust one had placed in them, the future they had promised me, none of it mattered. In their eyes, my sacrifice was just a daughter's duty. A convenient solution. A problem solved. As the applause continued, I quietly stepped away from the crowd and walked outside into the cool evening air. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and opened a contact I never expected to use for my own family, Victoria Hayes, a ruthless corporate lawyer I had met through industry events. I typed one sentence: "I need your help with a family business matter. Are you free to meet tomorrow?" That was the moment everything began to change. The next morning, I found myself sitting in the sleek downtown office of Victoria Hayes. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight glinting off glass towers, but I barely noticed. My focus was on the documents spread across the table between us, bank statements showing the $850,000 transfer from my personal account to Redwood Hills estate. Victoria studied them carefully, then looked up at me. "Let me get this straight," she said. "You transferred your entire life savings to your family's business. No written agreement. No promissory note. No shares issued. Nothing in your name." "They're my parents," I replied quietly. "They promised I'd be taken care of. That I'd have a future in the vineyard." She leaned back in her chair. "And now they've made your sister CEO." I nodded, the bitterness rising again. "They said her MBA makes her the natural choice. As if the person who actually saved the company doesn't matter." Victoria was silent for a moment, then asked, "Tell me about the day you sent the money. Exactly what was said." I closed my eyes, replaying that desperate phone call from 6 months earlier. My father's voice had been tight with panic. My mother had been crying in the background. They spoke about losing the land, the vines, my grandfather's legacy. They said my investment would secure my position in the family business. That it would be made right. That we trusted each other because we were family. "Was anyone else present?" Victoria asked. "Yes," I said. "Their accountant, Daniel Brooks. He was there when I visited to arrange the transfer. He kept suggesting we put everything in writing. My parents brushed it off, said paperwork would insult family trust." A spark of interest flashed in Victoria's eyes. "An independent witness who advised formalizing the agreement and was ignored. That's important." She pulled out a notepad. "What do you want, Alyssa?" "Control of the vineyard. A leadership role." I shook my head. "I don't want their throne. I want my money back. With interest. I'll build something of my own." She smiled slowly. "Good. Because I think we can make that happen." Victoria explained that verbal promises, especially when tied to financial transfers, could still carry legal weight, particularly if there was evidence of intent and reliance. With Daniel's testimony and the bank records, we could argue misrepresentation. But instead of immediately filing a lawsuit, she suggested a strategic first move. "A demand letter," she said. "Strong, detailed, and impossible to ignore." She began writing. "Repayment of $850,000 plus 8% annual interest. 30 days. Full disclosure of all financial activity since your investment." My heart pounded as I listened. This was no longer emotional. This was business. "And if they refuse?" I asked. "Then we sue. And their books become public." 2 days later, the letter was delivered to my parents' office at Redwood Hills. I was working from my apartment when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Lena. Her voice was sharp, shaking with anger. "Have you lost your mind? You're threatening to sue our own family. Dad's having chest pains because of you." I stayed calm. "The solution is simple. Return my investment with interest. That money saved the vineyard. You can't just take it back." "I didn't give it as a gift," I replied. "I gave it based on promises you all made." She scoffed. "Verbal agreements in family businesses mean nothing. You can't prove anything." I smiled slightly. Actually, I can. Daniel Brooks has given a sworn statement about that day. About their promises. About how Dad assured me of a secured position in the business. There was silence on the line. Then, Dad wants to talk to you. My father's voice came true, strained and angry. Alyssa, what are you doing? After everything we've done for you. I cut him off. Let's talk about that. You paid for Lena's education, her apartment, her car. I built my life alone. The one time I asked for something, you promised me a future here in exchange for saving the vineyard. We never promised you control, he snapped. I'm not asking for control anymore, I said evenly. I'm asking for my money back. He tried to soften his tone. The vineyard doesn't have that kind of cash right now. Then start talking to banks, I replied. You have 30 days. After that, this goes to court. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but my resolve was solid. The family I had trusted had made their choice. Now, I was making mine. The following week brought a revelation I never expected. I was sitting in a quiet corner cafe when Daniel Brooks, my parents' accountant, called and asked if we could meet privately. His voice sounded tense, almost nervous. When he arrived, he carried a thick folder under his arm and kept glancing around as if afraid someone might be watching. There's something you need to see, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. He placed the folder on the table between us. I've been reviewing the books since your investment came in, and the numbers don't add up. My stomach tightened as I opened the folder. Inside were detailed financial records, highlighted and annotated. Daniel pointed to several entries. Your $850,000 didn't just stop the foreclosure, he explained. It also paid for things that were logged as business expenses but were clearly personal. He flipped a page. The new Mercedes Lena drives. Listed as a delivery vehicle. Your parents' luxury trip to Tuscany. Marked as market research. Even parts of Lena's MBA tuition were backdated and recorded as employee education expenses. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. So they used my money to fund their lifestyle and her degree. Daniel nodded grimly. There's more. 2 weeks before your father announced Lena as CEO, they registered a new company, Redwood Holdings LLC. They've been quietly transferring assets from the original vineyard into this new entity. The realization hit me hard. So the company I invested in is being stripped. Exactly, he said. The original business is being hollowed out. If things went to court, you'd be left with a shell, nothing of value to claim against. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated attempt to erase my stake entirely. You need to give this to your lawyer, Daniel said quietly. But you didn't get it from me. I'm already looking for another job. I can't be associated with this. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from Lena, family meeting tonight. Don't bring your lawyer. Last chance to fix this like family. I showed Daniel the screen. He shook his head. They know something's coming. They'll try to pressure you, guilt you, maybe threaten me. I remembered countless childhood dinners where any conflict had ended the same way, my parents defending Lena, and me being told to be the bigger person. Not this time. I texted back, any discussion happens with lawyers present. Lena replied instantly, your choice. Don't cry when this gets ugly. I forwarded the financial documents to Victoria Hayes. She called me within minutes. This changes everything, she said, her voice sharp with focus. This isn't just civil misrepresentation. This is potential financial fraud and asset concealment. We are talking regulatory investigations. I don't want them in jail, I said quickly. I just want my money back. Then we use this as leverage, Victoria replied. I'm drafting an amended demand letter. 48 hours. Full repayment with interest, or we escalate to federal regulators. That evening, instead of going to the so-called family meeting, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at property listings on my laptop. One in particular caught my eye, Golden Ridge Estate. 200 acres, perfect soil, ideal elevation, and located directly across the valley from Redwood Hills. Competition. The amended demand letter went out the next morning. It hit like an earthquake. Lena called first, screaming. My mother followed, crying. My father left a voicemail accusing me of destroying the family. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on the countdown. 48 hours. Either they return every dollar they had taken from me, or their carefully built image would collapse under legal and regulatory scrutiny. For the first time in my life, the power balance had shifted. And they knew it. The amended demand letter exploded through my family like a bomb. I was in the middle of a virtual tour of Golden Ridge Estate when my father suddenly stormed into my apartment, waving the printed letter in his shaking hand. His face was flushed, his breathing heavy. Criminal charges, he barked. Against your own parents. Have you lost your mind, Alyssa? I calmly minimized the screen showing the rolling vineyards of Golden Ridge. Did you lose yours when you took my $850,000 and used it to buy luxury cars and take Italian vacations while secretly transferring assets into a new company? We never meant to, he stuttered. I cut him off. I've seen the books, Dad. The fake expenses. The backdated tuition. The shell company. You didn't just betray me. You tried to make sure I'd never be able to prove it. His face went pale. You have 40 hours, I continued steadily. Return my investment with interest, or Victoria files with the regulators. Every transaction will be investigated. Every lie exposed. You'd destroy your sister's future, he whispered. She just became CEO. I let out a bitter laugh. What about mine? I earned that money while Lena was posing for graduation photos and networking at wine tastings she barely understood. He tried one last move. Maybe you and Lena could share leadership. Co-CEOs. I shook my head. I don't want the title. I want my money. And after that, I'm done with Redwood Hills. His eyes narrowed. Done how? Right on cue, my phone rang. It was the real estate agent handling Golden Ridge Estate. I answered on speaker. Hi Alyssa, great news. The owner loves your offer and your vision. When can we meet to finalize the terms? My father's face collapsed as he recognized the name. Golden Ridge wasn't just any property. It was Redwood Hills' historic rival. The vineyard my grandfather used to compete against decades ago. Prime land. Perfect conditions. A place that could produce wines strong enough to challenge our family's brand. You wouldn't, he whispered. Wouldn't what? I asked quietly. Build my own vineyard. Use the same knowledge Grandpa taught me while Lena was studying case studies. Why not? Your grandfather would be ashamed, he said weakly. No, I replied. He'd be proud that I'm not letting his legacy be destroyed by greed and lies. I ended the call and faced him. 40 hours. Tick-tock. He left without another word. Within minutes, my phone filled with furious messages from Lena. You're jealous. You're trying to ruin me. Mom is crying because of you. I blocked her number. That evening, Victoria Hayes called with an update. They're scrambling. Their lawyer contacted 3 banks today trying to secure an emergency loan. No one wants to touch them without a full audit. Good, I said. They made their mess. Now they clean it. The next morning, Daniel Brooks texted me. Emergency board meeting at Redwood Hills. Lena is in the bathroom crying. Your mother is threatening to expose something about your father if he doesn't fix this. It's chaos. Then another name appeared on my phone, Ryan Carter, a loan officer at First Regional Bank, and Lena's ex-boyfriend from college. I called him immediately. The financial records show serious irregularities, he said. We can't approve a simple loan. But there is another option. A bank-backed investment group willing to step in. Full transparency. Full oversight. Your parents would lose control. Better than prison, I replied. I texted my father, call Ryan Carter at First Regional. You have 90 minutes. Lena responded instantly, so you'd rather hand our grandfather's vineyard to strangers than let family run it. I thought of my grandfather's words, spoken years ago as we walked the rows together. The vines don't care about titles, Alyssa. They care about honesty and hard work. 1 hour left. Victoria prepared 2 folders on her desk, one for the regulatory filing, one for the repayment agreement. Outside, the Dallas sky burned red like crushed grapes at harvest. Whatever they choose, she said quietly, their old way of life ends today. And for the first time, I felt no fear, only calm. Because no matter what happened next, I was finally taking back what had always been mine, control of my own future. With only a few hours left before the deadline, the pressure inside Redwood Hills reached its breaking point. I was sitting in Victoria Hayes' office when my phone started vibrating non-stop. Calls from relatives. Messages from old family friends. Even distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly cared deeply about family unity. I ignored them all. Then my mother walked in. She looked smaller than I remembered, her shoulders slumped, eyes red from crying. In her hands was a thick manila envelope. She sat across from me slowly, like the weight of everything was pressing her into the chair. Your father had to be sedated, she said quietly. His blood pressure is dangerously high. Are you satisfied now? I kept my voice calm. What's in the envelope, Mom? She slid it across the desk. $600,000. It's all the bank would give us. We can pay the rest in installments. Please, Alyssa. Let's not destroy this family over money. I didn't even touch the envelope. That's not the agreement, I said. $850,000 plus interest. Every dollar. All the filings go through. Her face hardened. The gentle peacemaker mask she'd worn my whole life finally cracked. You're being cruel. Your sister is calling every bank in Texas. No one will lend without auditing the books, and you know we can't allow that. Because of what they'll find? I asked quietly. She froze. Like the way you used my money to pay for Lena's MBA. Or how you hid assets in Redwood Holdings LLC. I have copies of everything, Mom. Every transaction. Every lie. For the first time, she had no response. Then she leaned forward, switching tactics. If you go through with this, the vineyard's reputation will be ruined. Distributors will pull out. Workers will lose their jobs. Families will suffer. Is that what you want, just to hurt your sister? Don't you dare put this on me, I said, my voice firm. You and Dad chose deception. You're the ones who put everyone at risk, not me. I turned my laptop toward her and opened the listing for Golden Ridge Estate. Recognize it? I asked. Her eyes widened. That land, that's our main competitor's old property. I'm buying it tomorrow morning unless my money is returned before then, I said. Prime soil. Perfect elevation. Enough production capacity to challenge Redwood Hills directly. She stood up shakily. You would destroy us. Then get creative, I replied. Sell the Mercedes. Mortgage the house. Call in favors. I don't care how. 11 hours. That's all you have left. She left without another word. Victoria watched her go, then looked at me. They're desperate. Their lawyer has been calling banks all day. No one wants to get involved without oversight. My email chimed. A message from the Golden Ridge owner, ready to sign first thing in the morning. Looking forward to working with you. I smiled. A few minutes later, a new message came from Lena. You're making a huge mistake. Dad's lawyer says we can drag this out in court for years. I sent her a single photo, the panoramic view from Golden Ridge's highest point, overlooking the valley where Redwood Hills sat. A view she knew well from her old photo shoots. Her reply was a string of angry emojis. The clock kept ticking. With 2 hours left, Daniel Brooks sent another update. Emergency board meeting. Your father is arguing with the lawyers. Your mother is crying. Lena locked herself in the bathroom. Chaos everywhere. Then Ryan Carter called. They're trying to secure an emergency loan, he said. But the irregularities are serious. However, there's another option, a bank-backed investment group. They'd take control for 5 years. Full transparency. Your parents would lose decision-making power. Tell them to take it, I said. It's better than losing everything. I texted my father, call Ryan Carter now. 90 minutes left. He called me instead. The bank once bought seats and control of financial decisions, he said hoarsely. We'd be answering to strangers. Better strangers than thieves, I replied. Sign, repay my investment with interest, and I walk away. No regulators. No competing vineyard. Silence. Your mother thinks you're bluffing, he said. She thinks you won't really go through with it. 15 minutes to find out, I said. Tick-tock. I ended the call and turned to Victoria. Prepare both files. The regulatory paperwork. And the transfer confirmation. Because one way or another, the truth was about to come out. With only minutes left before the deadline, the tension in Victoria Hayes' office was thick enough to feel. The sun was setting outside the glass windows, painting the Dallas skyline in deep shades of red, the same color as the Cabernet grapes my grandfather used to show me with such pride. Victoria had 2 folders open on her desk. One held the finalized regulatory complaint that would trigger a full investigation. The other contained the repayment agreement, ready to be signed if my parents finally gave in. My phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel Brooks. Your parents are in a close meeting with the bank. Lena is crying, your mother is blaming your father, and the lawyers are arguing about control terms. Then another message came, this time from Ryan Carter at First Regional Bank. Documents are being reviewed. If they agree to full transparency and oversight, the investment group will step in. They'll lose control, but the vineyard survives. A moment later, my father called. His voice sounded exhausted, broken. The bank wants 5 years of control. 2 board seats. Full access to every financial record. We'll have to answer to outsiders for every decision. And my money? I asked calmly. They'll release the funds immediately, principal plus interest. I closed my eyes for a second, steadying myself. Then do it. There was a long silence on the line. Your mother says you won't really go through with the regulators, he said quietly. She says you're too soft. I looked at the clock on the wall. 10 minutes left. Tell her she's about to find out, I replied. Tick-tock, Dad. I hung up. Victoria met my eyes. Are you ready if they don't comply? Yes, I said without hesitation. 5 minutes passed. Then my phone vibrated with an email notification. From Ryan Carter, subject, documents signed. My heart pounded as I opened it. Attached were scanned copies of the signed agreement with the bank-backed investment group, and beneath it, the confirmation of a wire transfer. $850,000 plus interest. The money was back in my account. They chose survival over pride, Victoria said softly. I let out a slow breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Good. My phone rang again. My father. It's done, he said, his voice hollow. The bank is taking over financial control. The transfer has been sent. Then this is over, I replied. I'll withdraw the regulatory filing. You've destroyed your sister's dream, he said bitterly. No, I answered. I saved my own future. After the call ended, I stared at the city lights for a long moment. I felt no victory, no joy, only a strange, quiet clarity. The chapter of my life where I sacrificed everything to earn their approval was finally closed. Victoria began organizing the paperwork. What's next for you, Alyssa? I smiled slightly and opened the real estate file on my tablet. Now, I said, I built something of my own. 2 months later, I stood on the highest ridge of my newly purchased property, Sunset Crown Vineyard, watching the evening sun sink behind the rolling hills. The light bathed the land in gold, warming the soil that would soon nurture the first vines of my own legacy. Across the valley, I could just make out the distant rows of Redwood Hills estate, now under the strict control of the bank that had stepped in to save it from collapse. The $850,000 I had recovered, along with the interest, had become the foundation of my new beginning. Investors, impressed by my vision and experience, had joined me. Together, we had secured the land, hired experts, and begun planning a vineyard that would focus not on luxury and image, but on quality, sustainability, and honest craftsmanship. Standing beside me was Daniel Brooks, who had resigned from Redwood Hills the day the bank took over. He was now my chief financial officer, a role he accepted without hesitation. They rejected Lena's proposal for a new luxury tasting room, he said, checking a message on his phone. The board said unnecessary expenses, told her to focus on wine quality and financial discipline. I smiled faintly. Reality finally caught up with her. The bank had replaced the flashy Mercedes with practical work vehicles. They cancelled extravagant overseas trips and forced a complete audit of every department. Lena's MBA, which once made her untouchable in my parents' eyes, meant little under real financial oversight. My mother still sent weekly messages about healing the family, about forgiveness and unity. I read them, but I didn't respond. My father hadn't spoken to me since the day he signed the agreement that handed control of the vineyard to strangers. I didn't blame him. In his mind, I was no longer his obedient daughter. I was the one who had forced him to face the consequences of his choices. One afternoon, a small package arrived at my office. Inside was my grandfather's old leather-bound notebook, filled with handwritten notes about soil composition, pruning cycles, weather patterns, and grape varieties. The pages were yellowed, the ink slightly faded, but the knowledge inside was priceless. Tucked inside was a short note in my father's handwriting: "This belongs with someone who understands its value." I closed my eyes for a moment, holding the notebook against my chest. Of all the words he could have written, those meant the most. It was his silent admission that, despite everything, he knew the truth. Now, standing among the open fields of Sunset Crown, I flipped through those pages again. In 3 years, these vines would produce their first harvest. In 5, my wines would be competing directly with Redwood Hills. Not out of revenge, but out of purpose. I wasn't trying to destroy them anymore. I was building myself. Daniel gestured toward the crew waiting with the first shipment of rootstock. Ready to start planting. I looked across the land, feeling the cool breeze, smelling the earth, imagining the future rows heavy with grapes. "Yes," I said quietly. "Let's begin." As the workers moved into position and the first vines were lowered into the ground, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Not because I had won against my family, but because I had finally chosen myself. I no longer needed their approval. I no longer needed their legacy. I was creating my own.